At the UN General Assembly, President Donald Trump didn't mince his words about Europe's illegal immigration catastrophe and how London is headed in the wrong direction. Take a look.
When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did. They repaid kindness with crime. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed, so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law. But you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained.
Stephen Briggs of Israel Matters joins us now. Stephen, what is going on in your home nation?
Well, it's as you have seen from those clips, there is a lot taking place, and there's demonstrations of literally hundreds of thousands of people that took place on the 13th of September. This understanding of Islam and the Islamization of London and the UK is not a new thing. Melanie Phillips wrote a book decades ago called Londonistan. And in recent decades, Muslim communities in the UK have increasingly participated in public life, moving from the margins to the mainstream of British politics, civic leadership, and cultural dialogue. And this shift is reflected in the rise of a number of high-profile Muslim leaders in national and regional government. This spat that we've seen between Donald Trump and Sadiq Khan is not going away. That's the most visible symbol of this political integration, so-called, where the three-term mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, is the son of a Pakistani Muslim immigrant and a lifelong Londoner. His leadership, it's stated, reflects the capital's diversity, but increasingly with more and more Sharia courts operating, there is question marks about his leadership and how the demographic and dynamic of London has become. It's become a major hub for the Free Palestine demonstrations. And just recently, Shabana Mahmood has become the first Muslim woman to serve as Home Secretary of the United Kingdom. Now, that's one of the most powerful positions in government, and it's responsible for immigration, policing, and national security. And her rise through the Labour Party ranks following years as a barrister and MP for Birmingham Ladywood illustrates the increasing inclusion of Muslim women in British power structures. And that's not to ignore the fact that we had a similar situation in Scotland with Anas Sarwar, who has been photographed with Yasser Arafat, and Humza Yousaf have broken similar ground in Scotland. Sarwar is the leader of the Scottish Labour Party since 2021, and he's the first person of Muslim heritage to lead a major UK political party. And Yousaf was formerly the First Minister of Scotland and Scottish National Party leader. So we've got a lot of things taking place. There's wider leadership within the Islamic world as well. But this is really coming to a head. The ideology that drives, or if I could say it this way, the theology and what we believe about God and our relationship to God. Of course, Islam has a very different view of God to the Judeo-Christian world, drives the ideology which brings about the reality that we see in society today.
Well, there's a lot of things being said online, even people going as far as saying, that this civil unrest could even lead to civil war. I'm not saying that. I mean, very prominent English folks, even your former prime minister is saying that, things are reaching a boiling point, a breaking point. For those of us who, maybe don't spend much time in the UK, how bad is it getting?
Well, again, it's a relative statement, isn't it? I mean, in the sense that, yes, there is conflict. Yes, there are areas that were declared as Sharia zones, if you like, and the police are reluctant to go in and engage in there. So there is a polarization within society. It's not a unifying reality. We are seeing enclaves in different cities: Bradford, Leicester, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, the different areas where there are Muslim-only zones, if you like. I grew up in a town where the first mosque in Britain was built, and saw the kind of engagement culturally with it from my childhood. But there is a scenario that we face in that the ideals and values that Islam has are fundamentally juxtaposed against British values. And what put the great in Britain and the United Kingdom was the Judeo-Christian worldview. And this confrontation is now playing out in front of us. Europe, if I could say it like this, rejected Jacob. She's now receiving Esau.
Wow. Wow. Well, I know for you and for me and folks watching this at CBN News, we realize that there is a not just a spiritual dimension, but that might be the most profound and meaningful reality. Obviously, your Prime Minister Keir Starmer just recognized the state of Palestine. What do you think is going behind the scenes? What do you think is going on behind the scenes spiritually with the UK?
Well, as a British citizen, this has been a very difficult week for me. This poignant moment where unilaterally Keir Starmer declared official recognition of a Palestinian state followed by Australia, Canada, and France. It really is a dark moment in British history where the British government has decided to meddle with the land God has promised to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And unsurprisingly, it's already backfiring. So the statement that he has made has resulted in musings of possibilities of reparations of not just millions or billions, but trillions of dollars needing to be paid in that direction. We have to recognize that recognizing a Palestinian state, which is what the Prime Minister of England has done, is rewarding terrorism. Is rewarding the fact that Hamas has taken hostage 250, of which 48 are still there, most of whom are, unfortunately, their lives have been taken in such a cruel, barbaric way. And it's the last thing on earth that is going to assist in seeing those hostages released. But there is a bigger spiritual dimension, as you mentioned, to it, because the Bible tells us that if we are involved in dividing God's land, he divides us. You reap what you sow is the principle, right? In Joel 3:1-2, it says, in the latter days, in the last days, when, not if, when I restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem, I'll bring the nations into Emek Jehoshaphat, and in Hebrew, that's the valley of God's judgment. And interestingly, it says not because of sin, it says because they divided my land and scattered my people. Now, it's not all bad news. There are those within the British establishment that have blasted Starmer for doing this. And Kemi Badenoch stated publicly that she wasn't in favor of this. She called the decision disastrous, absolutely disastrous. And she actually stated, we will all rue the day that this decision was made. Rewarding terrorism with no conditions whatsoever put in place for Hamas. It leaves hostages languishing in Gaza and does not stop the suffering of innocent people caught in this war. It is because Labour cannot fix the big problems in our society that they focus on discredited student union campaigns to appease the hard left. Badenoch, Priti Patel also blasted Starmer for capitulating to the hard left actions of his party and said he lacked all moral authority, as his insincere gesture on recognition is all about protecting his own position as leader of the Labour Party rather than securing peace and stability. I could go on if you like, but the ramifications of this are of historic proportions, and there's more to the British story than meets the eye, going back hundreds of years.
Well, a lot of folks on the inside are weary about what they're seeing from Europe, from the UK. Obviously, President Trump said as much, that Europe's heading in a very dark, dangerous direction. So I guess in closing, how should we, around the world, obviously I'm here in California, Americans, wherever we might be, how should we be praying for the UK? And then also, how can we be supporting your efforts?
Well, let me take you back a few hundred years to the likes of the Wesley brothers, Whitfield, Spurgeon, J.C. Ryle, Robert Murray McShane. We document all these in a film called Cyrus Nations UK. All of these men of God of past, you could call them, if you like, modern-day patriarchs of the British Empire, which the sun never set and the gospel went forth from, all recognized two things that had to happen before the Lord returned. The first was the gospel had to be preached to all the nations of the earth. And the second was that Israel had to be restored back to her land. They all saw it. They all understood it. And the culmination of that resulted in the British having a responsibility to return the Jewish people back to their ancient homeland, which, of course, happened with the Balfour Declaration and everything else that went on from there. However, when God chooses or uses somebody to help bring physical restoration, and we look through the Gospels and see that, it's always with the intent of being involved in spiritual restoration as well. And this is where Britain stopped short. Britain rescued Europe physically, but she never rescued her spiritually. Britain put the Jewish people back into the land physically, but there was a desire of God for them to be involved in their spiritual restoration as well. Britain losing sight of their responsibility before God is resulting in them being in a collision course with God regarding his plans and purpose. God has not finished with the nation. But this really is a turning point where there needs to be repentance and a coming back to what put the great in Britain and the united in kingdom.
Stephen Briggs, my friend, you are a wealth of information. Thanks for coming on, and God bless.
Thanks for having me.